All right. We're back. We're trying this again.
We're trying again.
I don't know what it is, but we've got tech issues with Allison. You're so high frequency. You're so high vibe. You're knocking everything out. And maybe it's the combination.
I think we might be too powerful together, Xane. I think that might be what's happening.
Right. Okay. So now you can hear me. You can see me.
I can see you. And if I pay enough attention, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, that will test your ability to pay attention and to not be distracted and not have ADHD or whatever it is that you
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. This could be very entertaining for us all.
Right. Yes. Okay. All right. So we did have this conversation before, but the technology was so bad, I couldn't even hear anything that you were saying. So I had to ask a question and then be in the dark as you answered it. And that didn't make for a great interview. So let's do it again.
Yeah, sure.
So tell us, what was it that you were experiencing that kind of led you to joining Detached? Because, you needed the help. And what did you need the help with specifically?
Yeah, so I've been kind of doing the solitary healing walk for a few years now. I experienced the trauma back in 2015, and it left me paralyzed on the left side of my body. I sustained a TBI, like huge trauma event. Before that, I had a pretty significant spiritual community that I was a part of, but in part of my trauma healing, I had to move away from all of that. So in being in the location that I am now, I had just been really doing a solo walk on my healing path with the help and assistance of my wife, who was also in their awakening path as well. So navigating with knowledge that we already had, but gaining new knowledge. And I was finding myself struggling. I don't know if I really like the word struggling, but it was a difficult way to navigate finding a soul group again. In just that short amount of time, the digital age from in person shifted quite a lot, where you could just meet spiritual people all the time in person. And now suddenly we're in a digital era. So I was really struggling to find my people again, and to kind of break some blockages that I knew I had, but couldn't quite see on my own. I think that any healer would admit that they still will have perpetual ego work in the midst of any of their own gains of information and insight. So I definitely knew that the blockages were there, and I needed some assistance in kind of like clearing the path. So I, like many other people during the pandemic, I fled to TikTok to alleviate some of the stress happening around me. And that's where I actually found you. I found you on TikTok. And there are a ton of what I would call music men on TikTok. I think that's like a good way to put it. Music men, like we'll come in town and sell you a bunch of broken instruments and say, here you go, now you can play. And what I mean by that is everybody is a healer in their own way, but there are a lot of people that I would consider false healers, really just trying to mislead people for money and financial access. And so I had to be very discerning when I was kind of seeking this out. And when I came across your video, I was immediately like, I'm going to comment on this guy's video and I'm just going to see where it goes. And
the comment was what?
I didn't have any negative entities, but I did have some negative energy. And I would agree with that. That was definitely true. And so when something grabs me, it grabs me. And I think, which we discussed in class, part of my detriment is I intellectualize it to death. Like I take all the intuition and I dissect it till there's nothing left. Right. So I found myself kind of doing that. And I spoke with my wife about it. And I finally just reached out. because the calling was too strong. I just was like, I feel like I can trust him. I feel like this energy is a place that is a great launching pad, is a good place for me to kind of see where it goes. And one of the mantras that I kind of went into 2020, 2021, those 2 years, was anytime that I felt scared, I was going to lean in a little harder, or anytime I felt myself getting hard, I was going to lean in a little bit softer. And so that's just kind of what I did, especially after I got to talk with Caitlin. I'm going to be honest, Caitlin totally was like, I could have talked to Caitlin all day. So, just having the connection that I had with you and then the connection with Caitlin, it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, it was kind of like, what am I doing if I ignored that? Those, two connections that were so instantaneous to me and felt so resonant in the energy that I was looking for. And that's where it went. That's how I joined class.
That's awesome. Yeah, now it's been a little while. It's been a couple of months since the last one you were in. And so tell us a little bit about how you feel now as opposed to how you felt beforehand.
Well, I think that, that I definitely struggled. I struggle with social media. I am a tangible, tactile person. Like, I love that. And so also being a very sensitive, I'm a very intuitive empath. Like, I feel things very deeply, and trying to keep those perimeters around social media, I was finding to be just too exhausting and kind of taking away from my focus. So I didn't want to participate, especially here on Facebook. I really didn't want to participate here. And so I struggled with that, and I talked about it in class a little bit about like wanting to post and wanting to share. And I will have to say, like, and I'm sure that you feel like you have this in every group, but I really like our group of people that I was in class with. Like, I feel like we all just kind of really flowed together, and like fed off each other in a really positive way, an encouraging way. And so when I was seeing other people post in the group, and I was like, oh my God, like I could totally do that too. I could do that. I could be vulnerable, and I could share that, and I could say that. And I know that a lot of people would probably say I do that anyway, but there is a dissonance between what I do and who I am. And I was feeling like I was leaving who I am out. And so since class, and I know even people that were able to hear me speak just the last time we met will hear a different tone in the way I speak now, because I really, really, I'm feeling like so free and clear on sharing my voice and trusting my feelings, and really just kind of going with the flow and allowing my body to lead with my intuition, as opposed to sitting and ruminating about it. Like, should I say this? Should I not say this? Should I post this? Should I not post that? And like the other thing I spoke of was like wanting that instant gratification. Like, oh, I just posted. Did somebody like it? Like, that is just, something that I'm seeing go away, with the exception of my wife. I'm usually like, hey, did you check out my post today?
Right. But that's probably for a different reason, right? That's probably because it's fun and it's something you want to share with her.
Of course, yeah.
Get validation and get, feeding the ego.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a huge thing for me. And I also realized that I was holding people at a good arm's distance. People were very excited at the beginning of class to connect, and I felt myself being hesitant. And in my reflection, I think it was important that I was hesitant, because as a healer, I sometimes struggle with the boundary of putting others before myself. And I wanted to connect with everyone in class, but I also didn't want it to distract me from what I was taking the class for. So I kind of had, I don't want to say cold shoulder. I definitely was just like, here are my boundaries. I'm here for class. I am not here for friends. Like, literally, that was the energy I was giving out. And then by like week 3, I was like, oh my God, you guys are my friends. Like I was totally feeling so connected to everybody, and and we're still all connected. Like we still check in with each other and we chat with each other, and yeah, so
That's great.
I'm feeling really good since class.
That's amazing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You glow for sure. So
Thanks.
now I know that you had some spiritual gifts that you knew about before the program. And I wonder, did any of them change? Did any of them get enhanced? Or are you just using them more than you did before?
It's interesting. There are a lot of ebbs and flows with the gifts that I have. One of the things that I struggled with is that I thought if one of my gifts was on, another one would have to be off because I couldn't handle them both on at the same time, or even sometimes four or five, six things. Like I always have referred to myself as a spiritual crock pot because I'm just kind of like throw it all in, turn it on, let's see where the meal goes. I have
Right.
found myself really in a space of silent presence more than seeking presence. And so, where I would have to do work to kind of get to that place intuitively, I'm just sitting and allowing. So, things have shifted where I'm not doing as much work on my end to like prepare myself to go to a higher ascension place or a channeling place. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just sitting and allowing things to come and just trusting that information. Not to say that there aren't times where I'm still anxious and I'm still hesitant. And I'm trying to understand if that means I'm supposed to work with that person or work with that energy because it seems very loud when it is making itself known. But I feel very peaceful.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're describing the difference between urgency and peace. And that
Yeah,
you're now in peace, and then things are going to flow much better. Whereas before you were in urgency, and and urgency comes from so many different things, right? Urgency can come from a deadline, but urgency can also come from a self doubt. Oh, okay, I don't know if I can actually do this, so I got to make sure I do it right, and then that kind of energy comes in through your gifts or your healing work or whatever that you're doing, and it can kind of muck up the joint. So yeah, so what are the spiritual gifts that you identify with the most?
well, first, I just want to say you totally nailed it with the self doubt, and that's a big thing. And the pressure to perform,
Yeah.
like those things. Once somebody kind of knows that you have an ability, sometimes they forget that you're still having a human experience, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're so brave, you're so courageous, you're so confident, you're so," and I'm like, no, actually, I'm freaking the fuck out right now. Like, I don't trust anything right now."
Mhm.
So, like, I've been able to separate that more, like other people's experiences around me versus my own experiences for myself. So I just wanted to kind of come back around and say, yeah, you nailed it. The self doubt was huge.
Well, I even want to then add to it, my spiritual gifts, you know what they are. They're raising your frequency. They're controlling or handling your emotions and childhood traumas and all these different things, right? But oh my gosh, it took me forever to get to the point where I didn't have to go, do my thing and go, did it work? Right? Like I was worried about that for the longest possible time, and now I know it's going to work, and I know that, and it works because the other person is open to it, right? I'm just
Right.
giving them permission to heal themselves. Yes, the Hathors are very powerful, and they're doing all this amazing work, and we're working together to figure out what it is that we need to do, all of us, including the participant. Um, but ultimately, it's them doing it all, and so all we're doing is being a guide for them in that process.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, the thing, and I was actually just revisiting, I think it was week 4, because I do like to like pop on, um, just your I log in every once in a while and put on a class and just listen to it in the background, like literally doing mundane tasks.
That's cool.
And so I was listening to that today and just exactly understanding like the fact that source and in the equidistance between each side. And I think that that's the same thing around giving and receiving of energy. And
let me describe that to people, just because you brought it up and they might be wondering.
Sure.
Got a handful of people who are watching who, by the way, hello, introduce yourselves, tell us where you're at, ask us any questions you might have about negative entity attachments, about the program, about anything for Allison as well. Oh, right. So we were talking about the equidistant thing. So I'm going to try to do a quick summary of this. If we are source, and we all are, then when we are at that source consciousness level, we don't have to worry about anything going wrong or anything going right. Everything is going to go exactly as it's supposed to go because we're essentially dictating it or creating it or allowing it to happen. It's all us. But when we are these individuals, when we are these incarnations, the things that are bad are physiological experiences. If we are having a negative emotional experience and we feel that physically in our body, if we're having a negative physical experience, we're also feeling that physically in our body. And so to us, bad is super obvious and good is also super obvious, because you're going to have the reverse. You're going to have a lightness, an excitement, a happiness, all that, right? But to us as source, positive and negative have no bearing whatsoever, because as source, we are living in the infinite now, and we are alone. So we are essentially facing infinite boredom. So we've created all of this potentially to keep ourselves interested and occupied. Well, if we are looking at this separation and saying, okay, this is the good column and this is the bad column, all of these, no matter where on the spectrum it is, they are equidistant from infinite nothingness or infinite boredom. So whether it's positive or whether it's negative, it doesn't matter. It's not infinite boredom, so give it to me. So we're here to have all the experiences, whether positive or negative. They are all useful and interesting to us, and that includes having a negative entity attachment experience, which most people would say, why would I ever want that? Like that's a terrible experience. But it's all so that we can have those experiences and we are not in infinite nothingness. Proceed.
This is where I could just go off on like all the connections of how that scale works in life, but I'll try and stay on topic.
No, I would love to hear where that goes.
Well, I mean, it's just like the whole idea of the scale. Like, we live in a constant state of polarity, like in division and black and white thinking, and in constant opposition. And so I just think that scale, like the way that I see it, is almost like a metronome, where like it goes back and forth and it keeps the meter and it keeps the time, and it's beneficial, but you don't have to stay to the time, even though it's ticking away. So I just like that scale, the source scale that you have, and like the way that it represents like really how we're always striving for that middle. And yes. But where I come in, like, to kind of go back to where you were talking, like, what are my gifts? I think that I too struggled with my gifts for a long time. And even when I entered your class, I had a lot of confidence in understanding who I was, but it was either light or dark, and dark was bad and light was good. And there was no in between. And, either you were bad or good. And I was trying to, work through some ancestral and matriarchal type of lines that I needed to clear karmically, where that was kind of shown to me that if you worked with it, it was dark, it was the devil, you would go to hell. Like, it was bad, it was shunned. And here I was, kind of this energy worker who I self-proclaim now with confidence as a gray worker. I work equally with the light and the dark. And I don't give anyone more power than the other. And if one makes themselves known, it's for a reason. So I look at your source scale as a huge validation for my self-proclaimed gray worker, and feeling comfortable and saying that's who I am. I'm a gray worker. I'm a medium. I'm an empath. I'm an intuitive. Sometimes I feel too much. Sometimes I feel too little. But the message comes through the way that it needs to for me, and it's anywhere in that scale.
Absolutely. Okay, so as a gray worker, let's dive into that for a second. So anybody who's watching, and by the way, I want to say hi to Anitra Madison. If you want your name to appear, Anitra, you'd actually have to click on this little link above the broadcast. But we're happy to have you. Thanks for saying hi. And now I forgot what I was going to say. Diving into gray worker. So tell us what your definition of a gray worker is and how it differs from, let's say, a light worker.
Well, I think perception is how it differs. I think that that's the biggest thing for me. I think that people would call me a light worker. In fact, I remember at the beginning of class, you referred to me as a light worker, and I was like, no, I'm a gray worker. I think that in order for me and my personal vibration, and only speaking for my autonomy in between being a human and being a celestial higher source self, being a gray worker takes away any type of narrative around whether if I'm doing something good or bad with the energy I'm working with. So being a gray worker means that if I have a lower vibrational energy making itself known, then it doesn't matter what energy I use to help it go where it needs to go. Same if I have a higher vibrational energy source coming in to give me information or to guide me or to pass a message along. I can use whatever energy I need to meet that energy as well. I'm a firm believer that energy only has the power that you give it, and that you have the opportunity to harness the infinite power that it has to offer. So what you do with it on the end is your own. So do some people gravitate more towards lower vibrational energy for their practices? Sure. Do I deem them bad or wrong? No, because that's what they've chosen to work with. Are there people that only work with higher vibrational light sources? Yeah. It's the same thing. It's the choice. And I think one of the things for me personally, I'm trying to get rid of that polarity. I'm trying to just attune to that gray zone, that middle zone in between those two ends. And I know that can cause anger and opposition and confusion to people because they're so inclined to say, but it's either this or that. And I'm right here going, but this is me. So I think that in 3D terms, I'm totally cool being the weird kid. I'm totally cool being the weird person. And I will say things that may not make sense to you. And in my alignment with like really truly loving my title as a gray worker, I'm finding the blossoming of my enlightenment coming even more so.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, the other thing that's kind of cool is that the word medium has a double meaning, and one of those meanings is it's not necessarily high vibrational, and it's not low vibrational, it's medium vibrational, because we're often tapping into people who have deceased or animals on this planet or whatever, and that is a different type of vibration. It doesn't say that it's bad or good, it's just a different type of vibration. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the other thing that I think that happens again with like people declaring just light workers being good, and I don't like to use the word like witch per se, but a lot of people get called out by society still today for practicing, paganism, Celtic paganism, Wicca, any type of form of what they feel called to has been declared as a lower vibration. And they don't feel that way. So who are we to say, what is what if they feel attuned to working in that craft or that modality or that energy. And so for me as a medium, I would say the same thing to be true. One of the things I learned a long time ago is that there's a different medium for everybody. So I I swear like it's my profession. I I talk off the cuff. I'm sarcastic. I'm funny. And those are the energies that I work with. And so I would say that if somebody is very serious and reserved, I'm not going to work with them as a medium. I'm not going to be able to gain the same access. And so when people just say, oh, I'm going to go see a medium, I would say make sure, just like if you're going to see a doctor or a therapist, find out what their energy is, find out what they work with. It may not work out. It's just one of those things where there is a different person for another person that matches perfectly. And that's why we're all here right now.
Okay. So now in my case, working with people who are coming in with negative entity attachments, it's very interesting to understand the various places that they've come. And fairly recently, I had someone come to me that said that they were doing Wicca practices and pagan practices, and they said, oh, I'm sure that's where I got the entity from. And I just smiled and said, it isn't about what you were doing at all. It's about your soul contract. It's about what, where you were at from a vibrational standpoint, where you miserable over something for a long time, or whatever. There are all of these other reasons why we have negative entity attachments, because we're vibrating at their matching frequencies, so they're going to come in, not necessarily because you did pagan or Wicca or whatever you did. That was just your preference at the time, and it could have been a high frequency being that came through. Again, just depending on the frequency of the individual.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I mean, before I really kind of understood that I worked equally with the light and the dark, and I was this light worker and I only worked with the light, I absolutely got negative entities attached to me. I absolutely. And I think that comes to personal responsibility too. Yes, do we have past life contracts? Do we have soul contracts? Do we have all those things that create the narrative that we're walking in this life? Absolutely. But I do think that there's personal responsibility that comes into play as well. If you are intentionally seeking out things and you're not doing the proper maintenance, then you're just gonna, I always say it's like clearing out the cache on your computer. If you're not clearing out the cache spiritually, guess what? It's going to bog you down and it's going to be heavy, and it may start out just as a little bit of debris, but then the next thing you know, you have a trash bag full of dark energy weighing you down. So I think it's both. Again, I think we just come back to it's this and not or.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And, and when you come to that, the description that you just gave about clearing out the debris or resetting, I also believe very strongly that when we are worried about what we've got or what we're attracting to ourselves, and when we bring in fear to that experience, then we're more likely to once again bring in things that we do not desire or we do not prefer. But instead, to be able to say, I'm a powerful being of light, and the only thing that I have to worry about is what is this awesome experience going to be on this planet, and I am powerful enough to know that this won't bother me unless I allow it to bother me. When we look at everything in that way, then nothing can actually affect us.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think again, it goes back to it. Only things can have the power that you give it. And the bring it on mentality, like I'm, Lieutenant Dan, is that all you got? Like, that's one of my favorite metaphors, is the fact that, like, and I don't know, maybe not everybody's seen Forrest Gump, but if you haven't, Lieutenant Dan is a Vietnam veteran who lost both his legs and goes on a boat with Forrest in a hurricane and climbs and screams at the storm, is that all you got? Bring it on. And one of the best things about that reference for me is he was in so much pain before that. He was miserable and he was angry at everybody. And he hated that his life had been saved in Vietnam. And after he thought that maybe he might die in this storm, and he said, "Bring it on, give me all you got." The best scene that I take away from that is the release that he gained as he literally swam into this glorious sunset. And the next time you see him, he is the happiest, most fulfilled person. And I reference that because I feel like a lot of people can use that as a visual to release the fear. Because we are all held back by fear. And we are programmed by fear. So once you can deprogram yourself and reclaim that, then nothing will stop you.
Right. Yeah. So I often like to do visual explanations of that. So here is fear, right? Like, oh no, don't do this. I don't want any more of that. Please stop. Why is this happening to me? Would it ever go away? I don't know. I can't live like this anymore. Oh my gosh, right? Or bring it on. Bring me everything you got. If you think that was bad, see it. I can handle worse. I can handle double, triple, quadruple worse. Let's see it, because I know I can do it. I came here for a reason. I have soul confidence that everything that I chose for this life is perfect for me to grow in the way that I need to grow. So I am not afraid. Okay, so this versus this is just that little visual is everything. And if we take on life rather than being worried about whether life is going to take us, then we're going to really go somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not only that, how tense does your body get from holding that position? I think one of the I've had a lot of really beautiful teachers in my life, and of course I declare everybody that I cross their path with as a teacher, because I've learned something from everyone. But I've had some pretty profound teachers in my life. And I've had two profound things. One of my favorite statements that I was taught by an elder was, disease of the body is dis-ease of the mind. So those two things they work together. And so I have carried that with me. Anytime that I feel something, I check in and go, where's this dis-ease? And then when I realize that I'm going through a lesson, I say thank you instead of why. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gratitude is one of the biggest things that has helped release me from the karmic cycle, whether it is in this life with my family or if it's what I brought in from my past lives. I've just learned that saying thank you to it allows me to move through it with a lot more grace and ease than if I didn't say thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, why is the first place that we go. And why is because we are a survival species, and we've used these brains to keep ourselves alive, even in the most difficult situations. We're soft and squishy. We don't have armor or claws, so we have to use something. Well, we're going to use these brains, and these brains presuppose all the worst possible outcomes so that we can circumnavigate them when we get there. Well, if your brain is constantly producing all the worst possible outcomes all the time, what kind of happiness level are you going to be at? You're going to be in fear. You're going to be in worry, frustration, disappointment. I mean, all of them are possible and likely when we're in that survival why mindset. But instead to just say, yay, or good, this bad thing happened to me. Thank you, this bad thing happened to me. I don't know what is going to happen as a result, but I know that it happened to me for a fantastic reason. I just can't wait to find out what that reason is. And if I never find out what that reason is, that's okay too, because I know it at a subconscious level.
Absolutely. I think that's, so important is like, you don't need to know everything either. Like if I have, we'll just call it a trigger, right? We'll just say that's a word everybody knows. If I'm having a trigger surface in my body, but my mind isn't showing me a picture. Why would I waste all that time trying to find the picture than just accepting that my body is bringing something up for me to release?
Yeah.
Like that saves a lot of time,
Yeah, it really does.
not having to find out why and just accepting that it is, and that, trusting your body. I think that's a big thing is, can you trust your body? And if you trust your body, can you trust that your body is working in alignment with your higher self to release the things that no longer serve you? Or do you have to find out why? And will that slow down or alter your course?
Right. Finding out why. Does it ever solve anything? Almost never. It does in the physical world, right? Why there's a leak in the ceiling? Oh my gosh, why? Well, we got to patch the freaking roof. Okay. Well, now we got that figured out. Now there's not a leak in the ceiling. Phew. See how well that works in 3D? Okay. I've got a negative entity attachment. Why? Oh my gosh. Who knows? It could be a myriad reasons. So what? That's not what's important in that moment. What's important is healing and looking at the world in a different way and loving yourself unconditionally and seeing what we're talking about right now, which is everything that happens to us happens for us, not to us. So when we have to shift that 3D mindset to the 5D mindset, that is a challenge for many people. But once you understand the basic concepts behind it, then it is actually fairly easy for you to access. And then, wow, does the world get easier and life gets more into peace rather than urgency.
Right.
All right. Well, okay. So what we just talked about is a lot of the stuff that we talk about in Detached. And it was really wonderful having you as a part of the group because you brought many of those insights in. And that's the fun part about it for many people is not only do they learn from me or the material, but they learn from their fellow classmates who are either suffering and struggling and dealing with something. And then you see the whole group try to help them, right? Or there's people like you who come in, yeah, you've got some things that you want to work on, but you also have an awful lot of insight. And so you bring that insight to help the other people in the group. And wow, not only are we healing everybody, but we're really creating a great bond in the group.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's one of the things that I really liked about taking the course with you, Xane, is the fact that you have, the course material that you're going to cover in the class, but you allow everybody to be an open participant as if we were sitting in a circle in person. And sometimes, people were feeling their intuition kick in so strong that they would say, oh, excuse me, Xane, can I please just say something that I'm feeling called to? And it would hit so on the mark for that person that needed it that it just felt really cohesive and it felt very fluid and open. And so I think when you're teaching in that style, at least for me, there's more seeds that you gain from it. Like there's more information that kind of hits in the subconscious that plants itself because you're not a student at a desk going, oh my God, here's this person teaching me all this knowledge I don't have any information about. Oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm doing. Instead, you have, oh, wow, I can just kind of relax and, I can talk to people and I can hear other people's experiences. And, oh, wow, this person's dealing with the same thing that I am. And, wow, Zane's really hitting it with this week's stuff. It just has this really fluid cohesiveness that I think even probably the most anxious person, whether they would openly admit it or not, felt a little bit more at ease with the way that the platform works.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right. Well, we're already, if you can believe it, we're already 50 minutes in. I think we started a little bit late, but
we started late because, the power of us causes a glitch every time.
Right. But I've got to get ready for the next class, which starts in about 10 minutes. So anybody who's interested in joining Detached, you can definitely do so. The next one starts February 1st. And I'm going to go ahead and put a link in here. So anybody who's interested, there's a couple ways you can go about it. One way is we can meet and have a conversation and really figure out what makes the most sense for you, because there are a couple of different options in joining the program. Or you can just go ahead and sign up, and we'll see you on February 1st. That works awesome too. So here's the first, I'm typing the link in. So let me think about this. What's my darn link to this? Oh yeah, I got it. Okay, there you go. So, like I said, we're starting week 5 today, which is the beginning of all the refilling with excitement and acceptance and positive energies, which the first 4 weeks we're getting rid of some of the things that were in our way, right? But we have to refill the vessel. We have to refill it with that positive energy. So this is always a fun part of the journey and of the program.
Week 5 was definitely a big, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Allison. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm really glad it worked out.
Giving us the second chance after that first bomb disaster. But at the same time, I'm sure we both got something out of it, because
totally,
a negative experience always brings us something positive in the end.
No, right. Anytime, Xane. I'm here to chat whenever you want.
Okay, we'll do it again then.
All right, awesome. Take care.
Right, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week, and thank you, Allison.
Bye.
Bye.